Hey everybody, Mike Guglielmi, Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. How y'all doing tonight? Nick, how's it going, my man?
Mike, it's so great to have you back.
I'm back.
Trying not to swell up with emotion. We missed you. Hope you had a happy New Year, Merry Christmas. How was your time off?
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well, and to all of our listeners and viewers. It was fantastic. It was a great trip. We traveled all the way down to Florida. We came back up through the Carolinas and Tennessee and Kentucky and spent 2 nights in the beautiful, literally in the valley of the Smoky Mountains. It was absolutely fantastic. So a great time, but that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about my personal life and your personal life. We're here to talk about some soccer, and there is plenty of off-season rumors and all that good stuff to talk about here. So first things first, I just want to say, everybody, if you're watching this, you're a soccer fan, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of our awesome soccer content. We are going to be blowing it up this offseason. Nick and I have already talked about a lot of ideas that we've got for videos that we're going to upload, different lives that we're going to do, live stream reaction, watch-alongs, all that kind of stuff. We got it all coming. As well, go check out the picks and predictions episode for Liga MX, kind of branching out and checking out some of the Clausura Week 1, which kicks off on Friday night. Go check out that video and watch that to see who I think will win those matchups in the first round. Nick, let us hear. What do you got now? The Twitter rundown, the Facebook rundown? What do you got?
You know it, Mike. It's our usual housekeeping. We're on Twitter at SOPSoccer. We're on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. We're here on YouTube at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. We're even over on Instagram, though maybe we're neglecting Instagram a little bit. But also, if you like what we're doing and want to support the show and support the conversation of soccer in America, you can find us on the Cash App, referral code FRQWGRS. Free $10. Donate $5 to us and you get 10. It's a win-win. We're also on Patreon, and you can find our swag on Redbubble as well. Also, if you want to donate straight through YouTube, we're monetized here. You can send us a super sticker or a highlighted comment, and we'll make sure that we get that worked into this episode. Also, if you're running a business and you'd like to support the show and promote your brand at the same time, we do have sponsorships available on the podcast side, on the social media side, and here on the YouTube channel. So reach out to us via email, podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. And Mike, to piggyback off of your thing, new content. I threw up a video the other day on Mauricio Pineda of the Chicago Fire. Make sure you all go back and look at my 1 hot minute, quick take on what Mauricio Pineda's extension with the Chicago Fire means for him and for that club. So we're going to start doing some more kind of short player profiles. Also, I was talking with one of our podcast subscribers, Bill Terpenis, one of my real estate agent / uncle. So we were talking, big soccer fan, and what new content he's thinking even that we should do, like an around the world where we touch on American players playing internationally, doing hot takes and things like that. And I used the word wanker in our conversation about Frank Lampard, and he said, if you're going to use the word wanker, then you need to start talking about Americans overseas. So that's how that got started. So be on the lookout for that, as well as some additional content that Mike and I are coming up with. But Mike, that's the housekeeping I had to get through. Anything else on your end?
No, got Ryan Anderson on with us saying Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, sir. Hey. And as well, we got T-Mac. Won't be able to join live tonight, but could you all discuss the Yedlin to an unnamed Eastern Conference team rumors? I'd like to hear our thoughts about it. So, yes, we will touch on that. That was a late-breaking story today, so we will touch on that. But, no, we got speaking of those overseas moves and all that kind of stuff, we've got a few signings that have gone down, starting out with Mark Mckenzie to Genk.
Now, this was a move we kind of saw coming. Mark Mckenzie, Defender of the Year finalist. He'd already been linked to Celtic in the Scottish Premiership. So for him to go to Genk is a great move for him to continue to develop. I think he's, only 23 years old, 22 years old or so. And as I tweeted it out last week, I said, look, he's going to go to Genk this year. Give him about 3 years, and you're going to see Mark Mckenzie to Chelsea, Liverpool, Barcelona, Bayern. You're going to start seeing him get linked with some of these big clubs. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, Mckenzie's an excellent player. He's only got up to go, right? He's improving so much. He's not reached the prime of his career yet. With some better competition to play against and some more advanced coaching, I think he's going to be great. That's not to say anything against the Union. They've done an excellent job developing all of these players, a number of which have been sold this offseason, as well as bringing in a whole crop of homegrowns to take their places. Like, we're going to have to start talking about the Union Academy right up there with Red Bulls and Dallas, right? But the other reason I think we're going to see Mckenzie's name get linked to a lot of other big clubs in the next 2-3 years is Genk has a reputation for building and developing big players. The two biggest ones, the biggest one that comes to mind for me is Kevin De Bruyne, now with Manchester City, came up through Genk. Didn't we have a couple other MLS players, or am I thinking Ghent, Mike? As I tend to mix up.
Ghent and Genk mixed up. But yeah, that was Alejandro Pozuelo from Genk. A great player, obviously a different timeline. He wasn't, he's not as young, but a great player who was with Genk and ended up coming over to MLS, and now your current MVP of MLS. I think Mckenzie, he is 21 years old. The deal is for about $6 million, could go up from there. He's a hell of a player. Really strong center back. Well, plays the position really well. His positioning is great. He's great in the air. He covers it all. I expect to see him do big things in Belgium and then take that next step probably pretty shortly. I don't think he's going to go that next step to like Barcelona or Man City or anything like that, but maybe the next step to like the tier below that, right? So like maybe a top Serie A team, or kind of not the top teams in Europe, but that next one down. That's kind of where I see him going next. And then maybe after 2 or 3 years after that, going to one of the bigger clubs, if all goes well.
Mark Mckenzie to Everton in 2 years. Yes.
There you go. Something like that. Everton, Southampton in the EPL, right? I mean, La Liga, maybe like a Real Betis or, one of those like middling table type of teams. And then if he does well there, then moving into the bigger sides. But then again, I didn't think that Zach Steffen would get a start for Manchester City against Chelsea in league play either. So there's that.
Very true. Very true. And as well, we need to talk about his Philadelphia Union former teammate, Brendan Aronson, who finalized his deal to RB Salzburg to go play for fellow American coach over there, Jesse Marsch. Mike, we all know how great Marsch has been with Salzburg, getting them into the Champions League, dominating their league with like a ridiculous goal differential, win streaks. Like, he's pretty much done it all in the Austrian league with Salzburg there. What does this mean for Brendan Aronson to get in there? I mean, there's obviously the coaching he's going to get and the competition, but what do you expect to see from Aronson? How's this going to develop his game moving forward?
I think it's really similar to the Mark Mckenzie type move, right? He's extremely young. He's proven it at the MLS level, just like Mckenzie has. Mm-hmm. Just like my whole thing with these youth players is like the Alfonzo Davies track. Now, obviously, Alfonzo Davies went to Bayern Munich and started in the Champions League final and lifted that trophy, which that kind of takes things to a different course than what you're going to see with most players. But the fact that he came up through their youth system, played in their USL team, then was brought into the first team for about a season and a half, and then made the move overseas. That's kind of like, I think we about 5 years ago, 3 to 5 years ago, a lot of guys would literally just jump from like the academy right over to Europe. And that wasn't working. They weren't getting that time. They weren't built well enough. And I think this is similar with Aronson. Now he's going to Salzburg, which isn't the biggest club in the world, but it's still a good Austrian club that, is coached by Jesse Marsch. He's going to be familiar with him and the American playing style. And he's going to do extremely well in that league, and then take the next step after that to wherever that may be. Maybe it's Leipzig, right? Over to Germany in the Bundesliga. Maybe if he moves out of the Red Bull system, which is funny since he was a Union player now being in the Red Bull system. But, I think he's on a good track. I expect him to do well over there. And that's the way it should be with these guys. You're not going to light the world on fire and go to Barcelona, when you're 21 years old and be the next big thing. even though, Serginho Dest did it and, kind of did it, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing like the Alfonzo Davies and the Serginho Dests tend to be the outliers. Obviously, that's the goal. That's what we want all our players to do. And when you said like these young talented guys used to make the jump from USL or the academies straight into some of these bigger European clubs, and they didn't get the playing time. They weren't ready from it, from a training sense, from a physicality sense, from understanding kind of the game from a larger league perspective. But then then the clubs weren't getting the money either. They were getting, pennies on the dollar of the value of these players, just because they're like, oh, cool, we're doing business overseas. We can make quick money now, even though it wasn't a lot. The MLS clubs have taken a step back and said, look, we're better off keeping these guys here for a year or two with us, developing them, building partnerships and relationships with these clubs overseas, a la FC Dallas and Bayern Munich, a la NYCFC and Manchester City and City Football Group, obviously same ownership, but you're seeing all these partnerships develop. You're seeing the value of the American players go up, and the clubs in MLS are reaping the rewards of a little bit of patience, right? They can get, instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars or a couple million, you got a Mark Mckenzie going for $6 million plus incentives, and there's going to be a sign-on bonus. Or a sell-on bonus,
yeah.
Excuse me. That's it, because he's probably not going to be long for Genk, or if he is, then he's going to hit those performance incentives as well. So the league, I think, is doing it right in developing their talent, selling them when their anticipated value is the best. On the flip side, then you got to look at how's that going to build your roster if you're trying to win trophies here in the MLS, right? If the Union were all in on winning a trophy next year, I'm not saying they're not, but if they were really all in 110%, then they would either be throwing mad money at Mckenzie and Aronson, shuffling things around, keeping these, assuming these are their best players, right?
Right.
To keep them here. But right now, the bigger value to develop the club, the organization, not just your senior team, is in selling these guys. Plus, you know what? If you're the Union, you don't want to hold these guys back either. Like they're going to reach their ceiling very, very quickly in the MLS. You almost look at, and I hate using Duke as a comparison. I just don't like talking about Duke basketball. But like you look at Coach K and Duke, if one of his underclassmen has the opportunity to go to the NBA, he's going to sit down and talk about it with them and say, look, this is what your path is if you stay at Duke for another year or two. This is your path if you go to the NBA. I can't stop you. And you're going to need to reach your ceiling, and you're going to need to reach your dream, more importantly. So that's kind of where the MLS is right now, I think. And I think Mckenzie and Aronson are excellent examples of that in the present here, Mike. Should we move on to Joe Scally?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other latest news, Joe Scally finally completes his move to Borussia Mönchengladbach. And I say finally because he actually, when he was in an academy developing, they had picked up his rights, but he couldn't go overseas. He couldn't get a work permit because he wasn't 18. He was only 17 when they actually, made the deal to acquire his rights. And then now that he has turned 18 and gotten a full season under his belt with NYCFC, he is making the move to Borussia Mönchengladbach, who, by the way, one of the most difficult names to pronounce of any team in the Bundesliga, but also finished fourth in the Bundesliga last season. Currently sitting 7th in the Bundesliga this season, and going back to the 18-19 season, finished 5th. So a very solid Bundesliga team. Mike, how do you feel about Joe Scally, the young gun from NYCFC, completing his move to Borussia Mönchengladbach?
Yeah, it's a good move for him. I mean, the fact that Borussia Mönchengladbach, blah 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 blah. I can't even say the word.
And Gladbach.
That's why I refuse to ever do a live stream reaction for that team, because I will just be falling all over myself all night. But it's a great move. But again, Joe Scally, have we seen anything from him in MLS? No, you haven't. He's barely played, if at all, for the senior team in New York City. Now, that is totally against my thought process. Like, prove yourself here first. Obviously, with a team that's finishing top 5 in the Bundesliga, signing a guy like that, he obviously has some skills and some talent. But I want to see it be proven out on the MLS pitch before you get out to Europe. These type of signings didn't work in the past. Will he be a game changer for that type of thought process? Maybe, but only time will tell.
There you go. Yeah, you're right. It is interesting to see him with I think he only had 4 games played for NYCFC this season, and even though he's been in the organization for a few seasons, that's it. It's the only time he's ever seen senior team minutes. Now he was on some U.S. youth national teams. I think the under-17 team, so that got him some exposure as well as getting him that international experience. But again, if this is his dream to go there, and I haven't seen the number on the transfer. I don't know if you've seen that at all yet. I know MLS keeps that pretty close to the chest there. But this could be a good move. And you look at New York City, bigger picture. Let's see. They sold Joe Scally. They sold who else did they sell this last window? Mike, why can't I think of his name? Mitritu. Like they sold him. Matarrita just got traded. So they're moving pieces around, freeing up some capital. You still have Eber and you still have Maxi Morales, your 2 key cogs in this machine, and you still got a great goalkeeper in Sean Johnson in the back there. So they've got some solid pieces. As I tweeted out last week, watch out MLS. If New York can invest wisely, they could be a very competitive team for the next 3 or 4 years. And I'm all for it. I mean, New York City has essentially reached their ceiling with their current build and with their current approach. So they've rotated coaches, they've rotated players, and they still have only gotten playoff disappointment, no trophies. So I'm glad they're making moves. They're shaking things up. And if they can invest it wisely, I look to New York City to have a pretty good future over the next 3 seasons or so. Mike, how do you think this plays in, this Scally to Gladbach move to the greater NYCFC picture?
I don't think it affects them much at all, other than the money, which, again, being part of Manchester City ownership group, money's not really an issue here. So I don't really think it affects them all that much. I mean, it makes some money for the league, makes a little bit of money for Manchester City's ownership group, but I mean, say it's $5 million on the high end, right? Since he's so unproven in MLS, maybe 6, right? Match Mark Mckenzie. Well, now you're talking after the league gets their cut. What is it, like $4.5 million or $4 million, something like that? That's a drop in the bucket to Manchester City ownership group. They'll sign that on like a bench warmer for their B side. So that's, to me, I don't think it affects them at all. If they had like what Brian Anderson was saying earlier in the chat about the Union are going to take a big steep drop off next year. That's, those guys, those were 2 core pieces of their squad. Joe Scally's not a core piece of New York City squad. He's played 4 games for him with 1 start. There's nothing, 70 minutes of play. It's not going to change New York City at all. They need to focus on bringing in, replacing Matrita, and, getting some good signings to, try and take that team to contending for an MLS Cup.
There you go, Mike. Well said. Well said. A little disagreement with us there, but well said nonetheless. One other kind of not quite a transfer, but a potential to develop into one. Tanner Tessman of FC Dallas has been training, or is going to start training with Bayern Munich this offseason. So Tessman had himself kind of a breakout year with Dallas, had a good showing in their playoff games this postseason, and he's training with Bayern. Now, we know FC Dallas has an international partnership with Bayern Munich, which I think is fantastic. Build that pipeline, get these guys exposure, get these guys the extra training. But the Bayern players can come to the United States and train in relative obscurity and kind of have some time off. We can send some of our top players over there to get that next level coaching and development. So I don't know if a deal is going to get done for Tanner Tessman, but I can't see Bayern bringing this guy in to train with them, especially knowing FC Dallas's reputation for putting out quality guys, and not just talent, but guys who can train well, guys who are good locker room guys, character guys, things of that nature. I think Dallas is doing that. And I mean, that's a credit to their whole organization. So, Mike, Do you see Tessman being transferred to Bayern sometime in the near future, or do you think this is just kind of let's get him some next level experience at this point?
I don't think he's ready to go to Bayern. Maybe they see something that I don't. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's quite on that level yet. I think that because of that organizational agreement that they have, maybe they see it as a good opportunity that this kid, let's see what this kid's got. Let's see if we can't help his development out a little bit and bring him over for a training camp. That's something where a lot of MLS players in the past, I know with Toronto FC that I've followed, a lot of their guys had gone over and done training sessions with European clubs over the offseason and never amounted to anything. They weren't going there. Tessman, if anything, maybe in the future, maybe next year, the year after that, but this is just kind of a learning experience for him and for Bayern.
Very nice. The last thing, we're going to get to T-Mac's question now. Deandre Yedlin, currently of Newcastle, also of the USMNT, formerly of the Seattle Sounders. If you all recall, 2013-2014, Deandre Yedlin playing with Seattle, starting just about every game. I think all but one game they were eligible. So would have been a Sounders legend had he stuck around. I think he had that potential and the potential to influence the league and the game like that. But he ended up making the jump overseas, and he has been with Newcastle. He has kind of regained some good form, is getting a lot of starts. I think he's a little underutilized, had a couple knocks, a couple injuries that may have set him back a little bit, but an excellent defender when it comes to Newcastle standards, a solid defender when it comes to USMNT standards, which thankfully are changing. We're being a lot more strict and scrutinizing of our defenders lately. Thank you, Serginho Dest, Reggie Cannon, Miles Robinson, and everyone else who is making that talent pool much deeper. Like, those are the young guns that Deandre Yedlin is competing with for international call-ups. But T-Mac posed the question, and the rumor mill has been flying, churning at full speed here. Deandre Yedlin supposedly has a pretty good offer from an Eastern Conference MLS team. He might come home. Maybe this is a move to try to get some more USMNT time. Maybe this is, I'm done with my time in England and I just want to come home and enjoy the rest of my career and maybe win something here back home. But that's, we haven't heard from Yedlin himself yet. When we do hear from him, that's what we expect. But we're gonna play Magic 8 Ball here, right? As much as I hate the speculations until things get pen to paper, we got a question from a listener. We're talking USMNT and MLS. Where, Mike, do you think Deandre Yedlin ends up if it is an Eastern Conference team?
It's a tough one. I think there's a couple options. From what I read, it was looking like it was going to be a TAM deal. So that kind of opens up a couple different pathways for me. I think one could be the New York Red Bulls. I think that's the type of player that they would go after. I mean, they're usually not big-time signing team, right? So, I mean, look at their last few DPs. I mean, they weren't knocking it out of the park with big-time names, right? Since Thierry Henry, they haven't really done that. So I think that could be a possibility because they are pretty weak at the wingback spots. So that's kind of my thought there. Also, I think with Toronto FC could be a possibility. He's left back, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so left back, as a left back, right now, Toronto FC has nobody on the books as a left back. So Justin Morrow is a free agent. He has come out and said he wants to finish his career in Toronto. But is he really worth 200, 250, 300K in salary? The Justin Morrow that I saw last year, absolutely not. A huge drop-off for him in his game. They had Tony Gallagher from Liverpool. That was a short-term deal. He's now back in Liverpool. That deal's over. They don't have a left back on the books. So maybe that, since it's TAM, if it was going to be a DP signing, I wouldn't put Toronto there. But as TAM, I could see them possibly trying to work something out with Deandre Yedlin.
But did they say that it's a TAM? Yeah.
And there's Ryan Anderson there. He's the TFC guru, man. I just one day I wish to know as much as Ryan with TFC, but Yedlin would be an amazing replacement for Morrow. I think it's us, honestly. So yeah, I mean that's it. I think it could be Toronto, possibly New York Red Bulls, but other than that, those are the only Eastern Conference teams I see.
Sure. The conventional wisdom, I've been reading around, a lot of the articles are pointing to Cincinnati or Miami just being the expansion. I'm putting it in air quotes here because they've already played a couple seasons. But being those expansion type teams who traditionally have terrible defenses, and FC Cincinnati, I think, setting the league record for worst defense their inaugural season, and Inter Miami not really being able to shore up the defense in some of these games. Plus, Inter Miami's throwing money around. I think everyone who's ever rumored to come to MLS is always rumored to come to Inter Miami. So I don't know if that's legit or not. But Cincinnati, definitely, they have said we need to make a big signing and we need to shore up the defense. I would think a big signing would be a DP level player. But if you can get Yedlin for Tam, hey, maybe that's just good negotiating. So I think Cincinnati is in the running. Also, they did just pick up Matarrita from New York City as well. So having him and Yedlin, and some of the articles that I've read have said like that would be an excellent fullback pairing.
Oh yeah.
You also can't count on Atlanta United, though. I think Atlanta United is still looking for a playmaker, someone who can help the attack. They got rid of Pity Martinez. They got rid of Miguel Marone. One because he's exceeded expectations. One because he was failing expectations. But they need a playmaker. They need someone who can drive that team. I don't think Deandre Yedlin fits that mold for them. So even though they like spending the money, they've got the ability and the drive to do so, I think that Atlanta's out. The other thing I've been reading about, Columbus, the Crew, the defending MLS Cup champions, in the market for a TAM defender. I don't know if that fits their profile, though an aggressive wingback does fit into Caleb Porter's scheme. I don't know if they're hurting for that right now. Mike, do you think Columbus needs another defender on this roster right now?
No, I mean they've got more offense. They've got Mensa, they've got Affle. They're fine. I don't see Columbus being there with that. I mean,
heck, it wouldn't surprise me if the Chicago Fire put in for him. They need to rebuild their defense. We just saw them extend Mauricio Pineda through 2023, club option for 2024. Why not bring in Yedlin, this USMNT player, a guy who can bring immediate, marketing potential, I'll call it, to the Chicago Fire. John, if you're listening, I know you think the Fire should bring in a Latin player, but Deandre Yedlin, I think, would be a great addition to that back line, especially Bornstein is getting old, and who else is back there? I can't even think of their names because they probably aren't here anymore.
Yeah, Sekulic, I believe it was. They had a couple young signings from Europe, so it's a possibility, but I don't know. I don't see it. The Fire just don't. I think they're with Wiki, even though again he had the short experience of U.S. youth national team coach. They seem to always go over to the Eastern European countries, and maybe they're not looking for that, to me, to the U.S. talent. Obviously they're homegrowns and things like that, yes, but so that's my thoughts on that. But I think we spent enough time on Deandre Yedlin. Will it even happen, or is this a move to get him out of Newcastle because he's unhappy? And so, of course, there would be a bunch of MLS teams chomping at the bit to get him. So why not use that as a play to find somewhere else? That's
very true. Wouldn't surprise me one little bit.
Yep.
So we've reached halftime of the episode. Thanks to everyone who's jumped on: Ryan Anderson, Heit Hager, Daniel Young, the Sky Blue Citizens podcast, our NYCFC guy, Isaiah Paskins, T-Mac. Whenever you're listening, thank you for jumping on for a quick second to say hey to us. We appreciate it. For everyone else out there, we appreciate your support, your likes, your follows on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And for anyone else who would like to promote themselves or their business, now would be the time where we plug in your sponsorship opportunity right here with the Sons of a Pitch and American Soccer podcast. So there's your halftime spiel. Don't forget, leave a tip on the Cash App or via YouTube comments with your
The
highlighted
super chat, man. We have not had a super chat yet. So
super chat.
Who will be the first super chat in our YouTube existence? That'll be interesting to see. Will it happen tonight? Will it happen during our live for our live stream reaction this weekend? Remember, guys, don't miss our live stream reaction with Tigres and Club Leon Saturday night at either 7 or 7:30 Central Standard Time. I've got to double check the time on that one because the time that I'm seeing on ESPN and the time I'm seeing on the different websites is different. So yeah, we'll be setting that up the next few days accordingly. But make sure you guys join us for that. And yeah, anybody would want to break into the super chats, go for it. We'd appreciate it. It all helps us continue to grow and grow the game of soccer here in the United States of America. We've been blessed and fortunate with a lot of the donations we've already gotten. So thank you all for that, and keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. So Mike, more soccer.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's transition to a topic you might know a little something about. Greg Vanni as a coach. Greg Vanni is out at TFC. We know that. He is this close to signing on to be the new LA Galaxy head coach. After Guillermo Barros Schelotto got canned after getting probably the worst out of his players over the time that he spent there. Despite all the talent in the world, they can't win anything. Just meaningless games over LAFC, apparently. So Vanni, he played for the Galaxy when they were a new team in the league. Well, one of the founding teams in the league. Played there for 7 seasons and then came back for an 8th season in 2008. So he's got ties to LA. He's an excellent coach. LA needs someone who knows how to win, someone who knows the league. Maybe this is a sign that the big international coaching signings aren't as cracked up as they used to be. I don't know if we want to get into that. But hey, by the way, Greg Vanni, 112 wins in 250 games with TFC. He almost has a 500 winning percentage. We're not talking draws or points, or almost 500 winning percentage. That's unheard of. And then finally, Vanni recently gave a quote when asked about, going to the LA Galaxy, what it would mean and, what he would do with the club. And his response was, I like projects. This club is in a really good place. There's not a lot of building to do. This club is positioned to be great. So all that being said, Mike, do you believe this is a done deal? Is Vanni going to LA? What could he do for LA? And could he do the same thing as he did with Toronto?
I think I could see him going to LA for sure. I mean, the writing was on the wall when he left TFC. He's from LA. He played for the Galaxy. It's right up his alley. That's his dream job in MLS. I don't know what his aspirations are for overseas, if he wants to, end up coaching in Europe one day or what. But I think he can do well with the Galaxy. He does know how to manage the bigger egos. This year didn't do extremely well with it with Josie Altidore, but I don't think anybody was going to be able to handle that with Josie Altidore. But, I think he handled Sebastian Giovinco well. I think he can handle a Chicharito or a bigger name player with the Galaxy, and I think he's a good coach. I think for LA, I know Ryan Anderson and Heid Hager are like, yeah, no way, he's a fraud over in the comments there. But he did well. I mean, he took Toronto FC from just a complete garbage team that could not make the playoffs in 9 years of existence to the playoffs, and then through to win the treble. You can't be a fraud to do that kind of thing. I don't care what type of money management is spending and things like that. You got to put it all together on the field, and he did that. So I think he can do good things for the Galaxy. I think they need to turn it around. They need to change up. I mean, the players that they have, they got to go. Where Vanni says, oh, well, it's close. His team is in a good position. You just maybe got to tinker with a few things. I don't think so. You got to wipe that team clean. Give them a year, give them 2 years, and build a team, get management. Obviously, the Galaxy will spend the money. Go get a good player like an Alejandro Pozuelo or a Sebastian Giovinco, who maybe can't quite cut it at Juve or, AC Milan right now. Spend the big money on those type of guys. And 2 years from now, they could be right in the picture of winning Supporter Shields, MLS Cups, that kind of stuff. hopefully, I don't want to see it happen because I hate the Galaxy. But we'll see.
Well,
Nick, what are your thoughts on Vanni?
Yeah, I've always got a soft spot for an original club like that. So, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for me if the Galaxy got good again and were contending in the Western Conference or just contending for trophies in general. But it seems from the reports that I've been reading, it seems like it's a done deal. They just, maybe are waiting for the right time. Now that it's the new year, we might hear about it, just to make sure Vanni gets everything, personally set up. I think that was a big thing for him, too, is he wants to take some time just away from the game for a minute, spend some time with his family before he dives right back into this project that is the LA Galaxy. So that could be why things got a little delayed, or maybe there is some talk about control. I know if you read a lot of things coming out of LA and Galaxy headlines and things, they're upset with Klein. They think Klein is as much to blame as some of these poor coaching hires because he's not getting good talent, not doing good scouting. So maybe Vanni says, look, I want some guarantees where I can have more input, or eventually, let me coach for 3-4 years and then move into kind of the technical side of things, the management, directing, administrative side of things. That could be part of what the deal is getting hammered out to be. But I think it'd be a great move. And I think Vanni can do with TFC what he did. The only asterisk to that is Klein is not Bezbatchenko. And a lot of people have pointed that out, that Bezbatchenko was such a good executive that it made Vanni's job easy. And I think that's kind of what Ryan Anderson, Hyde Hager are getting at, that right. he did well with great players. Anyone could do that. But I disagree with them to that point, because we've seen what Vanni has had to manage over the last 4 or 5 seasons with TFC, right? They've had to manage 3 MLS Cups, one which they won. They've had to manage Champions League. They've had to manage the Canadian tournaments, the Canadian Championship. And it's not like, they can cruise through a few early rounds of what's the US Open Cup. They're playing right. USL teams and Canadian and MLS teams. They've got to be on. They've got the target on their back. They're the best team in Canada and one of the top teams in the MLS. Additionally, with COVID this last year, this crazy season they've had, he's had to manage the personal side of this. People not seeing their families, players not being able to sleep in their own bed for months at a time. So for him to manage all the off the pitch stuff, as well as manage the minutes and the miles that his guys have been playing for how many seasons, to me, that's nothing short of spectacular for him to keep TFC in contention year in and year out for a top 3 or 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. I think it's phenomenal. I think he's going to do a great job, assuming he gets some of the players that he needs to build a better culture in LA. So I've put a few asterisks in there, Mike, hedging my own bets, I suppose. But I do think Vanni is going to do well. I wish Vanni a lot of success in LA. But yeah, if he butts heads with Klein, it's going to be a problem.
Agreed. Well said. Well said. So next up, Daniel Young was asking about it. The new CBA, MLS invokes force majeure clause on the CBA. Nick, you're the lawyer. Explain what that is.
Oh, Mike, I thought you'd never ask. Oh. So I went to Black's Law Dictionary and looked up the definition of force majeure. Force majeure clause. And for those of you who aren't in legal circles, Black's Law Dictionary is the definitive law dictionary for everything legal. Every first-year law student has it, and probably all got a couple versions of it by now. So Black's Law is the place to be. And it defines force majeure as contractual provision allocating the risk of loss if performance becomes impossible or impracticable, especially as a result of an event or effect that the parties could not have anticipated or controlled. So to put it in layman's terms, it's an act of God, right? If lightning strikes your house and you're under contract to sell your house, it's impossible to do so. There was a greater force that screwed up your contract, so you can't be held liable because your house got struck by lightning. That's essentially what it is. You can't tell the person, well, you still have to pay me the money you promised me, and I'm still going to give you a house. Force majeure voids the contract. In this case, it could possibly void the CBA that was agreed upon in principle in February, but never ratified, then renegotiated and agreed upon in June, and now is in jeopardy. So, couple of things to think about here from the legal sense, and then Mike will give you your time to see how this impacts the league. Typically, force majeure has been accepted by courts and the powers that be when it comes to goods, right? Like like I said, selling the house is a good, or selling farmed goods. If there was a flood that washed away the crop and the farmer's under contract with a grocer or someone to provide these goods, he's not expected to perform because of this act of God, this great force, this force majeure. When it comes to kind of performance, it's not as well upheld. And I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head as I was reading a few cases earlier. But essentially, if you can't perform some act or perform some service, it's like, well, did you really not see this coming? Is this really an impediment to what you committed to do? So that being said, that really plays into how this could affect the MLS CBA, because the league is saying, look, we're losing money hand over fist. We had $1 billion in expected losses over the season. We're still highly dependent on our ticket sales and gate revenues and everything in the stadiums because we don't have giant TV contracts yet, which we've been saying for you to do for years, MLS. Figure it out. Get more ad money. Get better TV deals. But the way it's going to play out with the CBA is, look, was there notice? And is this more of kind of a service thing, or is it kind of a goods thing? So again, notice. The league knew about this, right? We've been in the pandemic for almost a year. So if they're just going to say, force majeure, void, we're gone, see you later, take their ball and go home figuratively, I think the Players Association is going to have a really good legal challenge. But if the league says, we're probably going to invoke it, here's a notice, Players Association, of our reasons for it, and then they come back after 30 days of negotiations, which is required, we're probably going to invoke it. Here's another notice. Here's some more information. And then they finally do invoke it and void the CBA. Then they'll probably have a little bit more legal footing to stand on. But again, is this really unanticipated at this time in all of our lives here, a year into COVID? And Mike, you're shaking your head. I don't even think you want to get into these legal arguments. I think you really just want to slap the league around right now. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a load of crap. And that's the tough part, right? It's a business. You can't quite just be honest and be like, hey guys, look, what they should be doing. And for Cameron Young, since he just joined, is what the hell are you guys talking about? We're talking about the MLS contract, the CBA with the Players Union, as far as for playing next season, and MLS forcing using the force majeure clause in the CBA. You can't. If this was agreed upon 2 years ago, yes, perfect opportunity for something like that. But no, this is not. I mean, you renegotiated it in the middle of this pandemic. Yes, at that time we did not know that it was going to be, because remember, everybody, the government said, hey guys, we need to do this lockdown thing for like 2 to 3 weeks, and then everything's going to be back to normal. And we're a year later, and we're not even close to back to normal yet. So I just, if it was, it was right in June, for Christ's sake. We all knew what was going on with this pandemic, and now you want to pull it off? You just got to be honest and be like, hey, listen, we can't focus here. You know what I mean? We can't do this. We need to take the money that we have and, adjust salaries, do something in order to sustain the health of the league, because we cannot sustain this type of payment. So I don't know. I think it's crap. But overall, it's whatever has to be done for the league to be able to sustain itself, or else these players won't have a job. So there's also that. But again, that's for people to discuss and lawyers to hash it out. Just goddamn it, you better be on the field come March 1st or whenever the hell you decide to be playing your games, because if MLS is not playing, I will not be happy.
You're echoing the sentiments of a lot of our viewers and comments right now, Mike.
Yeah.
The MLS Players Association called this a tone deaf action. And while I understand it from the the ownership perspective that they're losing so much money supposedly, and that they need to kind of shore that up a little bit. Like you heard about it with Major League Baseball back a year ago at the start of the pandemic when sports were canceled, essentially. We look to the MLS as the guiding light. They got a bubble. They got procedures and protocols in place. They got the teams to play. They did the MLS's back tournament. The MLS was like the first professional sports league to have games during the pandemic, and we praised them for it. And they got a lot of more people involved in soccer because people were starving for sports. On the flip side, you had Major League Baseball, and it was the billionaires versus the millionaires, right? Wasn't that how they framed the argument, that you've got billionaire owners arguing with millionaire baseball players? Well, we don't have that in the MLS, but that's what it's starting to look like. We have these millionaire, billionaire owners playing with these thousandaire, 10 and 100,000-aire players. And one of the clauses, one of the new bargain for items was a higher base salary for veterans, for new players. Like everyone, they weren't going to increase the salary cap that much, at least not in one season. It was going to be increased incrementally, but they did agree to raise the base salary. So the worst paid player to make an MLS roster was getting a raise, and that was helping out players who wanted to choose to play soccer versus go take a 9-to-5 job, right? So you're losing that kind of goodwill. You're losing that kind of development and growth as a league if you're invoking this. And it really seems like the owners here in the league are just trying to take advantage of COVID. And they are like those billionaire MLB owners who are like, oh, we can't pay you guys, even if we pay you a percentage, equivalent to what you would have played. The MLB had millions of dollars in TV revenue. The MLS doesn't have that. So I guess I get it from a business sense, but good relationships and a good product and the survivability of the league are as much a good business practice as trying to save a few dollars, I think. And I'm with the players on this one. They could lose everything. They could lose everything. Mike, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about it. I mean, if you got any comments that have popped up in the chat, we can bring those up and see what people are saying. Otherwise, I think we've touched about just everything I've wanted to this week.
Yeah, Cameron Young has a good point here. We've been put into a full national lockdown, but the Premier League and EFL teams are continuing so that they can still make an income on pay-per-view games, on iFollow and Sky Sports subscription. There's ways around this. There is. You just got to put your thinking cap on. Now, I don't know. There's, Jay Jardim has a good point here with, I think there's probably 16 MLS owners who wouldn't mind not playing this season. They would probably save money. Agreed. There's a few teams that it would be better for those owners not to have a season. Which then why don't they just sell their damn team and move on? But
the tax write-off, that's what I want.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to work itself out. Neither one of these organizations here, the league or the players, can afford to not play. They can't do it. If the league wants to continue on as a league, they're going to have to put a product out in the field. Because if they don't, if they take a season off, it took baseball a long time to even come close to what they were doing before that 93-94 lockout. It won't happen. It won't work for MLS. They're not old enough. They don't have enough of a fan base. It will not be good. So then the players, you kind of stuck on the side of, well, there's a lot of guys in MLS that they're not going to be playing soccer if they're not playing in MLS. I mean, maybe USL, but if MLS goes out, would USL go out? I don't know. There's a lot of different pieces, but overall, both sides have a very big vested interest in getting it done and getting back out onto the field. Now, we are in a pandemic. From players' perspective of things, they need to understand that they do need to cut back a little bit. There should be salary reductions for some of these, if not all of these players. The league is not making as much money as it once was. There are a lot of people who don't have jobs in a pandemic. There's a lot of people who can't afford to put food on their table. and you're whining about making $275,000 instead of $300,000. You have to remember you're a human being as well, in a situation like this. So I think there's,
a collectively represented human being, Mike. Let's not forget that.
There you go. Cameron Young with a great idea. MLS GoFundMe. There you go.
Set it up, Cameron.
There you go. Let the league have have its own GoFundMe, and the fans can put some money towards that. Overall, that's pretty much everything here tonight to chat about here. We've got our live stream reaction coming up Saturday night. Tigres against Club Leon. A little bit of Liga MX action. Saturday night, the 9th. Watch out for that one. And you know what? Everybody have a good start to the new year. And we will talk to you all very soon. Nick, take it home if you got anything else to add.
Just want to say thank you to everyone who jumped in listening. Jay Jardim, Ryan Anderson, Cameron Young from all the way across the pond. We appreciate you, man. He even says, I'll set up the MLS GoFundMe if they sign me to a club. And hey, man, MLS clubs are always looking for good values at goalkeeper. So tell your agent, tell your club to start looking over here. Daniel Young, everyone else who's jumped in, thank you to everyone on our YouTube chat. Follow us along on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer, on Twitter at SOPSoccer. For everyone who is listening to us via podcast, thank you. Keep liking, subscribing, following us on social media as well. And for every listener and viewer, be on the lookout for new content. Mike and I are starting to put together. We hit that 1,000 subscribers. We are already at 1,200 subscribers now.
No, almost 13 now.
Almost 1,300 subscribers.
Huge growth since the playoffs started. We put that big push in, doing a bunch of live stream reactions, and man, the people have definitely answered that.
So you have made your desires known, and we will give you more content. Let's put it that way. So subscribe, like, and follow on all of our social media. Turn your notifications on, and we can't wait to continue this conversation with you all on all things American soccer. We really appreciate it, everybody.